All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580, talk line number. Get your questions answered here on the air. What have we been talking about? Well, we've been answering legal questions for the last hour. Of course, I was wrangling a little bit about this Batman shooter. Colorado does have a death penalty. He can get lethal injection. They've got 3 guys on death row right now. They have one person that they killed in 1997, since they reinstated their death penalty back in the late 70s. So it sounds a lot like Pennsylvania out there. They have a death penalty, but they're not really using it. Hopefully this guy will be expedited to the chair. Now, let me back up for a second. You guys know I do criminal defense, and I've done a couple death penalty trials, and he's entitled to an absolute defense. And if he's as loony as the day is long, that may be a mitigating factor that weighs against the death penalty. And that may be the result. And people may not be happy about that, but we have to let the law take its process. And the people of Colorado have picked their death penalty, and they've done it the way they want to do it. So we have to let the Colorado courts sort that out. But would I lose any sleep if they executed him, immediately? No, I probably wouldn't. But he is entitled to due process, and I think we have to honor that. Because whenever you give the government the power to kill its own citizens, I want you to think about this. Whenever you give the government the power to kill its own citizens, it has to be, if not restricted as tightly as possible, you're going to end up in a system where the government can increasingly change what carries a death penalty. And so in other societies, and actually, if we go back to even the turn of the century, the South, where minor infractions quite often carried the death penalty, depending on your race, for instance. Well, imagine a governmental power in this day and age where infractions could carry the death penalty. They do that in other countries. China executes tons of people for financial crimes, for instance. It's really not a great deterrent either, because if you ever notice, they have tons of those problems. So the other reason we reserve the death penalty for policy reasons to the highest level crimes is, imagine this scenario. I come over to your house and I rob you, and robbery carries the death penalty. So why don't I just shoot you, since that carries a death penalty too? That way I at least don't have a witness, right? So you also want to remember that your punishments have to escalate such that it tends to cause people who do commit a crime to make a choice to do the least harm possible in the commission of that crime. And that's a policy argument that a lot of people don't like. But again, go ahead, just make it the death penalty for burglary and robbery. Just a simple burglary, simple robbery, where there's no incentive not to leave your victim alive. I mean, that's the end all, because you leave a witness behind. What difference does it make? So, it's the logic, but it makes sense. 540-0580. Jim, you're on the air. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Carl. When they developed the development I live in 1989,
yeah,
they put in a large stormwater system, which in most cases runs under the street. However, in one area or two areas, they ran easements, so-called easements, and they ran the 30-inch water pipes around 2 or 3 properties from one street. I guess they did it to save money because the pipes would have to be buried pretty deep. But anyway, they ran them around the property from one street and back to the street to the main flow. Now, in 1993, the township adopted the stormwater system. However, they say they did not adopt the easements, and they belong to the homeowner. Now, in 2003, I had an overflow. There's a manhole in the back of my property there, which, of course, the easement runs right on the line between my property and the one next door. Anyway, it overflowed and did a lot of damage to my land, and they finally paid me $850 for the damage. Now, in last September, when we had Hurricane Lee, it just tore my property up back there, and they estimated over $2,000 damage. And the township claimed that they are not responsible because they say they did not. However, this is part of the system. It's a public storm system, but they claim they don't aim. They okayed this property. The engineer and the township managed. Everybody okayed this at 1989, but
Right.
now they say they don't own it.
I don't know the answer to that. Now, the guy in my office, Steve Schneider, Steve Snyder is, I like to call him Schneider because of the, remember Schneider, the repair guy.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Snyder is a municipal codes guy, knows all about the building code issues. I would encourage you to call our office and talk with him. It's 241-6070.
241
6070.
6070.
Yeah, that's our office number.
Yeah. Could I do this during the middle of the week? Say?
Yeah, during the week would be the best time to get a hold of him.
Yeah, and what's his name?
Steve Snyder.
Snyder. Yeah, this is a troublesome one, and I don't know when it's going to happen again, and it could happen any time they have a real storm. And but they paid me $850 the first time, and it looked like to me that showed some responsibility.
Well, it suggests that at least their analysis was different in the past, right?
Yeah.
So, good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carl.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. Jason, you're on the air.
I'm sorry, who's on there?
Jason.
Oh, hell. How you doing today, Carl?
Good.
All right, I've got a little funny situation I wanted to ask you about. There was I just recently divorced about a year and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
And there was children involved, there was custody involved, and there were no issues with custody or anything, but it got ugly somewhere along the line, and it was about money. It was really just a dispute of money. Now, my ex-wife turned around, and she isolated my children from me and actually had them make false allegations against me in court, and I've actually been through this in Cumberland County. I've been put on lie detector tests. I spent over $4,000 on my personal defense. And
Okay.
I'm wondering, is there any way I can civilly go after her? Because Cumberland County has already informed me that they're not going to do anything civilly for filing false report or anything like that. But here my reputation has been tarnished. I've been faced.
You
by
can sue for
different
defamation. Yeah, absolutely. Slander, actually spoken. If she wrote statements, then it would be for, what do I say? It's defamation if it's written, it's slander if it's spoken. So, yeah, you absolutely could bring those kinds of actions.
Great, because I've been curious because I haven't been able to find an attorney that would even consider this yet because I've been charged. Well, I wasn't actually charged of anything. I was just investigated by CYS here as well as in in Virginia. And, I've been going back and forth with my ex, and I've spent so much money. And now for the custody battle, it's being held in a Virginia court, even though, I requested change of venue to Pennsylvania where I live.
Part of the problem is, just so you understand, and why lawyers aren't anxious to take these suits is the only person you get a judgment against is your wife, right?
Yes, my ex.
And she probably doesn't have two sticks to rub together.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. But she...
Well, but then from the lawyer's standpoint is, what do I get a third of nothing if I represent you?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the issue.
So the issue is more with the attorneys just being able to collect the fee on the...
Well, yeah, I mean, and you could understand that. It would sort of be like, hey, you can repair my car for 10 hours, and I'm not going to pay you. And you're like, well, why would I do that?
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. I'm just wondering, if I can't pursue it criminally, would there be grounds for, civilly, would there be grounds for some sort of, criminal charges, considering the slander and the amount of money that I've had to invest in that?
Well, there may be criminal charges for false reports on her part, but you'd have to get somebody to prosecute her.
Oh, and that's where I'm going to run into problems.
Yep.
Cumberland County already said they won't.
Exactly. All right, my friend, good luck.
Thank you.
540-0580. We'll get back from the break. We'll take the person whose name I can't see on the screen. Welcome back. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. Well, I was going to be in some kind of civil trial this week, but that case is on appeal now, so go figure. And, of course, as you guys know, we're getting ready for our big sentencing in the fall here. Still lots of work to do there. Let me talk to this Joe Paterno statue for a minute. And, well, you know what? I'm going to come back to that at 2:30. At 2:30, I'm going to address the Joe Paterno statue. I really do feel I have to weigh in on that as an alum. 540-0580. Pete, what's going on?
Hey, just a quick question. I know you're up on the gun laws and whatnot. If I have a carry permit and I'm carrying a pistol in my belt, hidden by a shirt that that is not tucked in, and I bend over doing something, and someone can see my gun. Is that a violation of the law?
You have the gun tucked in your belt and somebody can see it?
Right, yeah. If I lift my arms to put something away, let's say, and my holster shows.
Oh, I don't think that's a violation of the law. You know, when you carry concealed, you're supposed to keep it concealed, right? But in Pennsylvania, you can carry open. So going in between the two is probably not a problem, except that a lot of sheriffs, I've noticed, have started to try to say that as a condition of getting your concealed carry permit, they don't want you carrying open. I think that's an invalid. I think that's an invalid requirement. In other words, I don't think the sheriff can tell you not to do something that you're lawfully entitled to do as a condition for giving you a permit that he must issue. Because we're a must-issue state. But we'll fight that someday when the right case comes along. On the other hand, you know, hey, listen, when I was in the state college, right, and I would get in and out of my car every morning, I don't have my suit jacket on. You know, any of you guys out there that are in the business world, you know, you don't wear your suit jacket in your car seat unless you want to look like a big wrinkle. So you take it off, and sometimes you have the gun there tucked in your back. I wear mine a lot of times in my back. Sometimes I have it tucked in there in the pants, and I have a holster that clips the back of the pants, you know. And put the Glock back there, and I'm big enough to keep the full size back there. And anyhow, long story short, sometimes when I get out of the car, you know, I pick the gun up and I clip it on, and then I put the jacket on, or maybe I put the jacket on and then I reach around and put the gun under the jacket. But at some point, somebody standing in the parking lot is going to see a flash of a gun, right?
Right.
I mean, what am I supposed what am I supposed to do? Put it in my underwear in the morning and just keep it there all day?
I get so paranoid about it.
Yeah, you know, and I wouldn't be, and I think if somebody saw the gun and it looks like you're just simply clipping it on, and somebody catches a view of the gun, I mean, I don't know why they're going to freak out, but then again, there are a lot of people out there that are just, scared of guns.
Yep.
But now I would tell you that you're not doing anything illegal, but I would also, suggest again, like, you don't want to do gangster style, wrap it in rubber bands and put it in your sweatpants, and have the butt hanging out as you walk down the street.
That's ridiculous.
That's probably not a good idea.
It's like the gal with the soccer mom that did that a couple years back. That was crazy.
Well, she was open carrying, which she was entitled to do, and they do that. And we've joked about doing an open carry Carlisle, where we get all the guys in Carlisle to come down to the courthouse and walk around on the sidewalk with their guns. Which I think would be a lot of fun, except then, of course, you always worry that, somebody's going to misinterpret that. Theoretically, when I was a kid, I used to ride around on my 10-speed with my shotgun in my hand to go hunting, and that's nothing wrong with that. But in this day and age, if I drove through downtown Carlisle with a shotgun in my left hand, I wouldn't be surprised if a police cruiser bumped me over. Yeah.
And when I was a kid in New Mexico, I would take my shotgun to school and put it in my locker so I could shoot jackrabbits on the way home.
Yeah. Well, here's something interesting. We were having this conversation. So we have the two attorney generals up there in the case I was in, and one guy's from Philly and one guy's from a rural area. And the rural guy was explaining to the Philly guy how there are all these guns in his county, and they have not had a homicide by gun in 50 years. And the guy from Philly's like, now maybe I'm starting to figure out why it is that the rural people have such a different view of guns than the city people. Because, down in Philadelphia some years they have, 400 gun deaths, right?
Yeah.
So you have a different sensation about how you feel about it based on what you hear in the news. Now, in Philadelphia, your odds of getting killed are not that great, right? Because most of the violence is thug on thug, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the gun violence. But nonetheless, it creates a perception. Whereas if you live in the rural areas and you've got 10 guns and your neighbor has 10 guns and everybody has a couple guns and nobody's ever shot anybody with a gun, you have a pretty good feeling that most people are responsible. Yeah, it's all perception, I guess.
Well, thanks, sir. Appreciate your advice.
Hey, no problem, Pete. Good luck.
Take care.
540-0580. I think I've got R.J. Harris here.
It's me. How are you?
Good, RJ. How are you?
Good. Hey, you were talking about carrying just now, and I know you've said this before. I wanted to, call you this week to ask you this, so I might as well do it on the air. You're pulled over by an officer.
Okay.
Do you tell him you're carrying concealed or not?
Well, we've had this conversation on here before.
I thought, and I couldn't remember what you said.
And we had a guy who was complaining because he told the police about his gun. And then they took his gun and ran the serial number on it, wouldn't give it back to him until they got a check on the serial number.
Huh.
And I said, well, you didn't have to tell him about the gun. You shouldn't have told him about the gun if you didn't want him to check it.
Okay.
And the answer is you don't have to. But every time I've ever been pulled over by an officer and I have the gun, I have usually said, officer, I just want to make it clear that I do have a concealed carry permit and there's a weapon in the car.
Okay.
However, RJ, if he went the next step and asked me to provide him with the weapon, I would say no.
Okay.
I would say, if you want to get me out of the car, that's fine, but I'm not going to give you the weapon. You just pull me over for, I don't know why, tell me my tail light's out.
Okay.
So.
All right. That was it. Pretty simple.
All right. Well, thanks. It's great to hear from you.
All right. See you, buddy.
Hey, by the way, RJ, before you go.
Yeah.
How did you weasel your way into a packed studio full of ladies? I saw a picture of that on my internet this morning.
Hey, what was that again?
Yeah, you. I saw you with a group of girls. You got into girls' night out.
Here's the deal on this, okay? They were having a ladies' night out, and they wanted me to be, as they called it, the token male. Now, you saw all these women are beautiful. How do I say no? And they're all friends, but I believe it's a public service that I had to go and entertain.
I saw that, and I'm like, man, RJ is the man.
Life is tough. It really is.
Thanks for stopping by.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Oh yeah, I was on Facebook this morning. I see a picture of RJ and like 20 girls, all gathered around him, like the king. I don't know. 540-0580. I know the line is ringing, so we'll grab the next caller here as soon as we're available on the board. I did post on Facebook, by the way. We had a caller earlier talking about some police brutality, so put the article up so we can all look at it and see how we feel about it. I also posted the schedule, August 25th from 2 to 3 p.m. I've got the elder law expert David Nesbitt on here on WHP 580. He'll be on for an hour in the show. September 4th at 7 p.m., I'll be doing gun laws and rights at the Harrisburg Hunters and Anglers. And you can get a free coffee mug from Rominger & Associates. It's a hot, cold mug, travel mug, very nice, at 35 North Hanover Street at the Carlisle Bakery. So stop in and ask for it. 540-0580. Joe, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Thanks for taking my call. I have a son in prison, and he has a girl that's due in August. He has no chance of being out for that event, and she's also talking about giving the child up for adoption. Does he have any rights, or he's already incarcerated?
How long is he going to be in jail for?
Till next June.
Oh, no, he has rights. He has absolute rights. As soon as the baby's born, he could file a custody action.
Custody action, okay.
Yep, and she would need to serve him to terminate his parental rights with paperwork. So if she was going to try to give the kid up for adoption, she would be able to fight that, or he would be able to fight that.
Okay.
All right?
All right, thanks, sir.
All right, good luck. 540-0580. Warren, you're on the air.
Hey, I'm calling because of the situation you said about the firearms. I used to live in Kennesaw, Georgia. Have you ever heard about the Kennesaw gun law?
No.
The Kennesaw gun law, sir, is it was in response to an issue that took place in Chicago, west of Chicago, about 40 years ago. They banned firearms.
Okay.
Period. Okay, Second Amendment, well, we have people in Washington right now that don't care about the Constitution for the most part, but they banned them, period.
Right.
The City Fathers in Kennesaw, Georgia, which, by the way, is about 25 miles north of Atlanta, mandated that if you owned a home, if you were sound mind and body, didn't have any felonies, you had to provide them, if you couldn't provide them a weapon, they fined you.
Oh, nice.
Well, the left-wingers went nuts with those poor women and children. There hasn't been a death by gun in Kennesaw, Georgia, since they enacted the law. There was one murder. Route 75 goes through Kennesaw. Somebody apparently got off 75 one night, went in and murdered a hotel clerk. But there isn't anything. When I moved to Atlanta in 91, there was an old lady, an 80-year-old woman who went shopping at the Macy's inside of the Beltway, and an individual who had been deported multiple times attacked her at her car, didn't realize when he knocked her down and broke her hip and her collarbone that when he yanked the pocketbook away, that she had her one hand in a slot and had a .357 Magnum and just sent him away. Well, Mayor Bill Campbell of Atlanta, who just happens to be in federal prison right now because he was such a crooked person, but he blasphemed this old woman so badly, it was pathetic, sir. 3 months later, I get a call from a friend of mine to go to City Hall. They had her there in a wheelchair. They took a collection. They paid all her bills. They gave her a Citizens Award, and they gave her a box of Corbin ammunition, which we call Widowmakers, because if you get a center man shot with Corbin,
right,
they aren't surviving. Well, the sheriff, the chief of police at that point, said that the day before, Bill Campbell said living in Atlanta was safe, which is a misnomer at best.
I got to go to break, my friend, so
okay.
Fire
long
fast.
Story short, no crime in Kennesaw. And don't take my word for it. Google the Kennesaw gun law, sir. You'll find an amazing thing.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
540-0580. Carl Rominger. See you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Jay, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl. It's been a while since I called.
How you been?
Screener pointed out. Now, I'm from Philadelphia. I grew up there, but I've been out here a long time, and I wasn't going to call, except it is. I do feel different. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have guns. You can have guns. I do believe you're entitled to guns. I just don't think it's going to, with having a Wild West environment, there are guys that think everybody should be packing, and and they think they're going to be the Lone Ranger and pick a guy out in a dark theater from, 60 feet away. I question that. But the guy that called about the law in Georgia, they did try to pass that, and they may have. I'm sure it's unenforceable. I am sure that if I was in that place...
Oh, I don't know. Now that I can make you buy health care, I can probably make you buy a gun.
Well, I already have health.
And all we're going to do it is we're going to create a tax that's really a penalty. That's not really a tax. That's really just a penalty, but sometimes it's a tax.
Well, I don't see any difference between the states and the federal government. If it was up to me, there wouldn't be any states. I mean, so to say the state can do it, but the federal government can't. But then I don't agree with most of the people that are on this station. I mean, but I understand people having the right to guns. I think this guy pointing out that this is a valid law. I still think if it had been taken to court, I doubt very much if they actually fined anybody or try to, because I'm sure it would have been taken to court.
Right.
And again, I have no problems if you're licensed to have a gun. I just don't think anybody should be forced to have a gun.
The other thing you might find, though, in a small rural town like that is it's almost a law with no effect because every household already has a gun.
I understand my mentality is going to be different than the guy that grew up in the woods hunting, and it's a different thing. I just think that some people are a little too eager. Some of these people that call are a little too eager to use their guns.
Well,
I'm going to save the.
Well, that's that's actually a very practical issue, though. A lot of times is when you do have a shooter. Who pulls out their gun, and then are there two shooters, or is there one civilian trying to protect the other civilians? And
these things are going to happen. They may happen with more frequency, or just maybe they're more publicized in the era in which we live. I don't think there's any way you can completely. There was a real conservative guy who was national guy on WHP. And the first night he was blaming the studios for making violent films, but who goes to these things? People that like violence. It's. Well, I mean, I don't think. I mean, if you're either crazy or if you. There are people that are not crazy. They become dictators. Maybe they're crazy, but they have they have a purpose in their own minds. That is going to happen every so often, I think, in today's world.
Listen, they used to feed Christians to lions, and gladiators used to fight. I mean, the crowd's need for some violence has been well established in this species.
I just wanted to say about this law the guy brought up that I'm sure if anybody had taken it to court, at least at a certain, go up a level or two, that it would be.
I don't know the answer. Now that I can make you buy health care, why can't I make you buy a gun?
I already have health.
Well, I know what I'm saying.
Well, you can make people,
buy
pay
broccoli.
for Social Security. You could always do that. It isn't any different.
Well, no, that's interesting.
You can make me buy broccoli. You may have trouble making me eat it, though I do like broccoli, really. Anyway, that's
all right, Jay.
Okay.
Which, by the way, some of you may not know this, but broccoli is one of the cruciferous vegetables, and for some people, it tastes very good. But for other people who have a sensitivity to certain chemicals that are found in cruciferous vegetables, Shane included, they don't like the taste of Brussels sprouts or broccoli. And so sometimes when you tell a kid to eat his broccoli or his Brussels sprouts or his cabbage, what he's really trying to tell you is it don't taste so good, but you can't taste what I taste in it. So interestingly, those vegetables have people who really like them and then people who find them very distasteful, and that has to do with the little genetic makeup there. So when you tell a kid to eat his broccoli, you might want to be certain that it tastes the same to him or her as it does to you. And, of course, there's really no way to know that. Just like it's hard to say whether what I see the color red is the same color you see as the color red. Daryl, you're on the air. Hey, Daryl.
Daryl, yes. Carl, how are you?
Good.
I got a quick question. A couple months ago, my wife was a victim, I guess I'll call it a home invasion. They stole the car, a handgun, and her cell phone. Of course, we got the car back, and the handgun they have at the state police. Now, my question is, somebody told her that once it goes to court and it's all settled, that she can get the handgun back. Is that true?
That is true.
That is true.
That is true.
And all we've got to do is let the DA know that we want it back.
Yeah, make sure. And don't let them do anything with it, because my experience, these district attorneys and these courts and everybody, nobody wants to give the gun back if they can possibly avoid it.
Okay, well, everybody we've talked to, the one DA who was at the preliminary said, yes, you will get the gun back, and I'll get the information for you and have the officer call you back, but he's never called. We've tried to call him back.
Send a letter to the police officer and the district attorney just saying that, you want to make it clear you want the gun back at the conclusion of the case.
Okay, that's all we got to do.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
And if there's a problem at any point, let me know.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, my friend.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. Tom, you're on the air. Hey, Tom.
Okay, yes, Carl. Thank you. I got a question to ask you. My aunt was 95 years old. She just recently passed away. Now, she didn't have a will. One of the family members was a power of attorney when she got to the hospital because she didn't have nothing set up. She needed a power of attorney. My family member was power of attorney. Now, the money that she had, who has legal jurisdiction over that since she didn't have a will?
Okay. She's your what?
Aunt.
And who survives her?
Well, basically, she was lived with her sister. She was a tenant there, though. She paid rent.
And is the sister still alive?
Her sister's still alive, yes.
Okay, so she dies without a will. Her money would go down to her children. Does she have any children?
She didn't have any children.
No children. So
None.
Then it goes back up and sideways. So her sister would then become the inheritor of her money.
Okay. Thank you, Carl.
But she should probably open an estate if it's in an account to get it out.
Well, that's a whole other issue about this whole situation. When she was in the hospital and she became better, nobody asked her if she wanted a will.
Right.
There's some unanswered questions here. Her niece was the power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So that whatever asset she had, I guess her niece would probably can have that, right?
Yeah, and the answer on that is, if there's no will done, there's no will done. You can't really blame anybody for that because she could have done a will at any time, right?
That's correct.
So, but yeah, and you got to make sure that if we're talking about substantial amounts of money, there's got to be taxes paid and all kinds of things on it. So
yeah, sure.
All right, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good luck.
Yep.
Oh boy, 540-0580. What else did I want to tell you? We did find that there is capital punishment in Colorado, so that's the good news, right? We researched that earlier on the show for everybody. I'm a pro-death penalty person at the end of the day, although I have grave concerns about it in the sense that a lot of times people's guilt or innocence isn't as easily established as we would like it to be, and the process is kind of messy. Here, it seems like the evidence will be overwhelming. The only question then will be one of mental health. We don't generally allow the state to execute people who are nuts, but that doesn't mean they can't be locked up for the rest of their lives in a padded room somewhere. Concern here is maybe this is a call for better mental health screening. There are a lot of people who walk around who seem very normal, can carry on high-level functioning, but who have underlying mental health issues that go untreated. And so I would say perhaps as a society we need to determine better ways of screening that and being careful about it, because I did hear a news account that allegedly the shooter's mother was not surprised that he was involved in such a thing. And then you wonder, how did that happen, that a parent could be not surprised? I mean, maybe they didn't call the right people, but actually you're going to find out, I believe, they may have reached out in the past to do something and not gotten any help, because frankly, there's not a great system in the United States and in most of our states in the United States to reach out for help with mental health issues for a friend or a relative or a family member. Pennsylvania, for instance, cannot institutionalize somebody unless they're a danger to themselves or others within 30 days. So our Mental Health Procedures Act creates a situation where a doctor could go, this guy's clearly going to kill somebody someday, but I can't say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that it's going to happen anytime soon, therefore he may walk free. That's a little bit different. Now, the flip side is in other countries, they use these civil commitment statutes as a way to keep people as political prisoners. Oh, yes, comrade has gone crazy, therefore we're going to lock him up, and therefore he can't run for president anymore. 540-0580, Carl Rominger. I'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. 540-0580 is the talk line number. Call in. We'll take them. I want to talk about the Paterno statute, but before I do that, I will take Eugene here. Eugene, what's going on?
Hey, sir. Hope you're doing well. Thanks
Good.
for taking my call. Hey, sir, a quick question for you. I never saw a follow-up in the newspapers, but when you were questioning Mike McQuarrie's father about his grand jury statement, and then he denied making it, or he said he couldn't remember ever being in Harrisburg to make the statement, the paper said you were surprised by it. Did they ever resolve that? Was it a memory problem? I just wondered. The papers never followed up on it. So, well,
the answer is that was never explained. And so whether it was a memory problem, confusion, or what, I don't know. And the judge did not let me cross-examine on the transcript that I had, even though everybody agreed that he had been there. So go figure.
Yes, sir. I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
About it, but is it okay?
Yep.
I was wondering, did anyone ever ask Mrs. Sandusky when she was on the stand? Mr. Sandusky had admitted a number of the behaviors, like showering with children at night in the gym and things like that. Was she ever asked? Was she aware of that behavior? 'Cause I remember in the papers saying that she was angry at her husband for boundary issues, but I never saw a follow up on that as well.
I don't recall the answer to that. I can tell you that I don't think so. But the best source of that's going to be the transcript itself, which is available.
Yes,
I'm not sure if it's publicly available yet or not, but I know it's been transcribed.
Good to go. So I'll look it up.
All right, my friend. Good luck.
And so, hey, I don't like Sandusky, but I think you acquitted yourself well. I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you very much. You know what? I worked hard, and I know Joe worked hard too. But I felt that I did a good job as with what time I had to work with.
Well, I'm proud of you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. 540-0580. Doyle.
Hello.
Yep.
I've got a question about expungement. 44 years ago, I was 18, and I got involved I took some car parts off a wrecked car.
Did you plead guilty or were you convicted?
I pled my lawyer said that I should plead guilty. So I did plead guilty, and I got a felony charge.
Okay. In Pennsylvania, the only way to expunge that would be to get a pardon. So you get to apply to the Board of Pardons, get a pardon, and then ask for an expungement.
Okay.
Okay?
Or wait until you're 70.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my friend. Yeah, Pennsylvania's a tough state for that. In Pennsylvania, if you've committed a crime and you plead guilty to it or you're found guilty of it, you're not likely to get it expunged. Summaries you can get expunged these days. Underage drinking can get expunged. ARDs get expunged. which is that diversionary program. But if you plead to a misdemeanor or a felony, no matter what anybody tells you, it doesn't disappear in 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years, or all the crazy things my clients tell me. Or, well, I had a juvenile record, but that's sealed. Nobody knows about it. I'm like, well, that's strange because I have it here on a piece of paper right here to talk about it with you. So keep that in mind. Don't just plead guilty or be found guilty. Always fight those things or work out a diversionary program that avoids conviction. Otherwise, it's going to be on your record for life. And if I had $1 for every time somebody called with that question we just had, I'd be a rich lawyer. Now, back to the Paterno statute for a second. There seems to be some idea out there that statute should be taken down. I posted on my Facebook page a blog article that talks about the free report and how thin the case against Paterno really is. And there's a lot of speculation and assumptions being made. I've seen a lot of the evidence. I was involved in one of the cases, so I have some inside knowledge. I've looked at excerpts from the free report. I won't claim to have read the entire report. But if you go to my Facebook page and read the article that I placed up there, and maybe I'll move it back to the top again so you can find it easily. I'll do that in a second here. You're going to see that there's a lot of legal and logical conclusions that are being made on a leap of faith, and that the evidence, as this blogger points out, and I think in one of the best written articles I've seen on it really isn't that solid. And so the Paterno family, when they say that Joe Paterno's image is being unfairly tainted or maligned, have a pretty strong argument. So I'm going to, without going into any more detail, I'll just tell you to come to my Facebook page and read this article that I'm about to post that I've had up there for a few days. So some of you probably already saw it. But it really gives a very strong indication of where we're really at with the status of information there. Now, there may be more to come. The other thing I want to say, and this is kind of interesting, the governor came out and said that Penn State refused to cooperate with their subpoena, or the administration was less than cooperative. The Attorney General's office has the power of a warrant. They didn't have to depend on Penn State to provide information. If at any point they thought they were being uncooperative or not providing things or working too slowly, they could have used a warrant, which is subpoena is basically a request that says bring these things to us. A search warrant would have been a document that a judge would sign off on, which would have allowed the Attorney General's office to basically go to Penn State and just take whatever it is they wanted. So to the extent that anybody's claiming that somehow Penn State wasn't compliant with a subpoena, well, then it's just simple negligence not to follow it up with a warrant. So I do think that's an interesting aspect in this case that may be getting washed under the mattress or under the rug, so to speak here. People are forgetting that you don't have to depend on somebody to comply with a subpoena when you can use a warrant. And a warrant doesn't have to be it can be for any evidence of a crime upon probable cause shown. So you could say, hey, dear judge, we think there may be emails that are relevant that Penn State. So somewhere in the original 3-year investigation, one would think one would have simply issued a warrant if they thought the subpoena wasn't cooperated with. So I just thought that was worth noting, that the public should understand that a subpoena is not the end-all, nor is it the only tool available to the Commonwealth. And so to say that an entity was non-cooperative and then say that somehow prevented you from getting all the information over all those years of investigation begs the question of why you simply didn't ask for a warrant to issue. Keep in mind that if I just said on the radio today that Billy Smith has marijuana in his living room, the government could get a warrant on that basis alone and go into Billy Smith's living room to look for marijuana. If the government went to a judge and said, hey, we think Penn State has emails and documents and things that are necessary for this investigation, and here's what we're looking for, any emails referencing these people and these things and these events, the judge would simply sign it, and then they could just show up on campus and take what they needed rather than not wait. So anyhow, my thoughts are the Joe Paterno statute should stay. Read the blog article I'm about to put up, and don't get too led down the primrose path by the idea that somehow this investigation was held up by Penn State's lack of cooperation, because, again, that simply could have been sidestepped if that's the case. So if they were not cooperating, then one would think a warrant would have issued. So I don't know if they cooperated or not, so that's the interesting question. I don't know. I know I have a few minutes left here. If you need to get hold of me throughout the week, go to romingerlaw.com. Obviously, we practice throughout the mid-state. I'm happy to represent anybody who can hear this signal. We do all kinds of law. Steve Snyder in my office does a lot of municipal law. He helps fight townships for people. He helps them work with townships. He's resolved a lot of cases that way. He also has zoning issues and land use issues, done some really creative work. And so if you need a codes guy, he's your man. I would also just highly commend before you build somewhere, because it just reminds me of something we just had in a case. Before you build somewhere or buy some land with the idea that you're going to use it for something, make sure you check on all the zoning issues. Make sure you check on all the restrictions on the property, because that's coming up again and again with people buying land they can't do anything with after the fact. Anyhow, guys, I'll be back next week. I will see you next Saturday from 1 to 3 here live to answer your legal questions. Always a pleasure. Thanks.